If you've ever wondered about different account types when it comes to investments and some of the trade-offs that might occur because you're using one instead of the other, we've created a simplified explanation here for you today with Caitlin, Colorado, to run through some of those possible scenarios. So Caitlin here, just to make everything simple, we removed the real estate from her situation, so she just has a number of different types of investment accounts. So here you can see, starting off with cash alternatives, cash accounts, she has about 10,000. That may or may not be sufficient as far as an emergency fund goes, but that's really not the main focus here today. You go next to her taxable investment. So again, this is her non-qualified investment account. This is her flexible account. You can see about $310,000 in here, and it is situated as a TOD. Now that's probably a good idea if Caitlin has children or direct beneficiaries that she's wanting this account to seamlessly pass on to as far as the next generation goes. So that's something to point out for yourself, like how is your flexible account if you have one registered? Is it individual? Is it a TOD to assist with passing on directly to beneficiaries if that's the goal? Or is it set up without a TOD, meaning it has to go through your will, which sometimes makes sense, but sometimes just adds additional complexity as well. Next here you see she has a number of different annuities. Now annuities can be very tricky. They can have very different rules and ways that they work from one contract to another, because for an annuity it is a direct contract between you and the annuity company. So old school annuities, you're probably just thinking, hey, I annuitize it, I get income for life, and I lose the balance. Annuities can do a lot of different things outside of that. Some of them have income riders, sometimes they have different protections on the values built into it, extra death benefits. So annuities can have a lot of different moving pieces. Now here, in this situation for Caitlin, we set up these annuities to be income riders when I jump over to the plan sharing portion of this. However, if you do have annuities, realize you need to understand how they're working. Here we have IRA annuities, but you might also have a non-qualified annuity as well. So like a lot of things, if you have an annuity, you should be solving a specific problem for you most likely, and you should definitely understand how it works and what some of the limitations may be because of that contract that you have. Lastly, here you can see qualified retirement, having an IRA, again invested moderately conservative, and 125. So what's kind of jumping out here for me is, hey, if I'm working on this plan, I really need to understand these annuities because they make up a big portion of her situation. And outside of these two annuities, she has roughly $435,000 or so that may be fully accessible. So in this case here, we built out these annuities to have income riders on it, which really means that we're probably not going to be touching this balance at all, because that's going to mess up the income piece for Caitlin if we did that. The last thing here to kind of look at is we have Caitlin's TOD that's moderately conservative and her IRA that's also moderately conservative. Now this very well may not actually make sense because we want these buckets to be structured according to when she needs the money. So for example, let's say her Social Security and her annuity income is more than enough. She has too much money already. Then moderately conservative, unless that's the highest amount that she's really comfortable with, may not be appropriate if she's planning on never touching those funds, right? Let's say she has a child and she wants that bucket to basically go to the child because she's not going to really need it. Hey, maybe she could do gifting ahead of time, or maybe we should make it moderate or moderately aggressive, something like that, if it's really intended for a child, 10, 20 years down the road. Same thing with her IRA here. I mean, if she did need money, let's say she does need some extra money, she's going to go to this bucket first, and she has $310,000 in it, which means she has to spend all kind of $310,000 before we would even look to go to that IRA bucket to supplement her income further. So again, unless moderately conservative is the most comfortable that she is, that's the riskiest that she's comfortable getting, then this account at a minimum should probably be one step above where her TOD or individual bucket would be. So those are just initial things jumping off the page here. When we jump over to the planning piece of it here, now you can see different elements that if we were working with Caitlin on a one-on-one basis, these would be some of the pieces that we would be going through, right? So starting with secure income, you see her annuity income is here in green, her Social Security is in blue. So she's pretty much at her living expenses already, meaning that she probably doesn't have to touch her investments really much at all, or if she does, it's to a pretty minimal amount, which means that we want to be sharing with her, hey, if she can maybe afford to spend some more money, maybe she doesn't realize that she can spend some more money, we could do something like that. And now when we spend more money, you can see that that expense line jumps up, right? Because we're adding more onto it. On the flip side, maybe that she's scared that she wants to make sure she has enough still put away in case there's a long-term care scenario. We find if you've had a family member that went through that, they probably are pretty sensitive to it because it can be a pretty traumatic, expensive, difficult thing to get through. So that's another thing in the one-on-one planning situation that you could start looking at. Finally, let's say that some people might have inheritance coming to them down the road. They say, I know mom and dad are sitting on a lot of money. At some point they said like, hey, this chunk is going to come to me, or I know mom and dad are good with their social securities and their home is paid off. So at some point that's going to come down to me too. We can build in those kind of inheritance things, or that's something you might want to be looking at so that you can say, oh, maybe long-term care, maybe both of those things on top of each other could now be possible. But that's where the interactive planning standpoint comes into play to really be looking at those certain elements. So again, if you're having your own situation, jumping back to the balance sheet here, look at how you're situated. If you have an annuity, really make sure you know how it works and make sure those risk tolerance are fitting for not only what you're comfortable with, but what also, when you might be needing the money. After that, that's when you can start building on, hey, what if we looked at this? What if we look at that, for planning on a one-on-one kind of a situation to make sure that you're not on track to just do what you have to do, but also if you have additional flexibility on top of that to live a little more or plan for things such as long-term care, you could put your mind at ease in that regard as well. So thanks for joining me today, and more plan shares to come.